Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Here I am. I look a mess because it's morning here and I woke up a little while ago, but I haven't quite gotten myself together, but I kind of wanted to like show off my book collection here that I've sort of have been amassing um, prior to the pandemic, and then recently, since bookstores have started opening up, I've been kind of going to local bookstores and doing curbside service to get kind of these titles that I've been looking for. And I've amassed a collection, as you can see here, of classic novels that um, I want to read, obviously, but in a lot of cases it's revisiting some old things that I maybe had read in high school or college, and I was reading them because I had to read them because it was for a class, and I don't think that I was able to appreciate them because, I was being made to read them, and I kind of saw it as well, it was homework. So now this is just for pleasure, and this is just something that I want to get into and get an appreciation for. So as you can see here, I have all kinds of classic titles, and that's really my goal as a reader. My goal is I have this compulsion to expose myself to the finest expose myself but expose my mind to great works of literary art, um books that I've heard about, that I know are great, are deemed, they're part of the Western canon, and they are sort of like these towering works of art. And I wanna feel that. I wanna experience those works of art and have an appreciation for them. Um, I don't know. It's kind of personal because on some level, I guess I'm a bit resentful of the fact that I don't feel like I got the greatest education when it came to literature. And I resent that because I know that there are some very well-read people out there, and there are people who, when they were in high school or when they were in college, were exposed to some, and I'm sure a lot of that is is on me, as a lifelong learner, to take the initiative to expose myself to certain works or whatever I may be interested in. But on another level, I do think that my education in English literature was severely lacking. I did have a great high school English teacher, two great high school English teachers that tried to spark something there, and who, I guess, nurtured me as a reader. But it was almost like too little too late. Fortunately, I had parents who were always buying me books and who were indulging me, or who were indulging my um, bibliophile mania of like buying lots of books. And so that was good, but I just feel like I'm severely lacking in my literary education, and I want to be it's not so much that I want to be well read, it's that I want to experience the greatness of these works of art. I want to be affected by them. I want to touch them, to be touched by them, to learn from them, and to have an appreciation for them, or not. I just want the experience of being able to say, okay, like I've read that book, and I learned something from it, or I gleaned something from it, or I hated it, that to me is important. And so I've been really kind of like, I'm gonna sit down here because like I said, it's morning here and I woke up, and so I decided to make a video. My bed is not made. I'm drinking coffee. My hair is horrible. I cut it myself, uh, and it's starting to grow out, and my sideburns are gross. Anyway, so yeah. So that's sort of my goal, and I've been really toying with this idea of um, a reading list, but a lifelong reading list. Sort of like a long-term reading list of books that I want to I want to integrate into my life, and sort of shape my life around, my reading life around, because obviously it's going to take me a while to read through all of these works. Maybe a lifetime, who knows? I'm not a fast reader, but I know that there's people there that just they zip through things. I like to I mean, there are times when I really just kind of get into a page turner, and I just kind of continue with it, and I can breeze through a book, but a lot of books take me a good while to get through. I sort of, read a chapter and put the book down, chew over it, think about it, sit with it, read a little more. So it's a gradual process, and I find that much more rewarding than just forcing myself to power through a book. It's just not my style. A lot of times. So yeah, I can imagine that this let me show you again, that this will take me a while to get through. And I'm sure I'll add more to it. You can see my marijuana history book. That is not a classic book. That's the only one in here that's not a classic book. But it's certainly an interesting book. It's a sort of like a legal and political history of marijuana. I believe it was published in 2018, 2017, 2018, so it's fairly recent. If you're interested in cannabis and like the politics around that here in America. But yeah, so these are, I've got some John Steinbeck up here. I've got to find a way to organize these, but I think, so right now I'm reading Call Me By Your Name by, and I'm not going to pronounce his name because I probably won't be able to do it justice, but I'm reading Call Me By Your Name, which is this beautiful gay love story set in Italy, which is amazing because I love Italy, and I really want to go back. I really want to go back to Italy to visit, and I would love to see Rome again. But yeah, like the if you've never read Call Me By Your Name, so far I'm reading it, and it's quite sexy. It's quite I mean, just think like a hot Italian summer, and beaches, and intellectual conversations, and music, and a romance, a gay romance, lots of skin, and it's one of those sultry kind of like a coming of age story too. Like primarily the book is a coming of age story. It's told from the perspective of a young man who's falling in love with a somewhat older man, and it's his first, it might be his first homosexual kind of like, well, I think it is his like sort of like a gay awakening. It's his sexuality kind of like first coming into fruition and expressing itself in the form of this like great passionate first love. And it's heartbreaking and beautiful and intense and erotic, and it's just great. It's a great book. And there's a movie version. Actually, the cover is the movie version with Timothy Chalamet, I think is how you pronounce his name, and Armie Hammer. And it was directed by Luca Guadagnino, who directed Love, or I Am Love, with Tilda Swinton, and also he has several, like Bigger Splash was another one. He's an Italian director, very good director. Oh, and recently Suspiria. He directed the Suspiria remake, which was interesting, an interesting film. But the movie version of Call Me by Your Name, I've seen that. I have not read the book. This is my first time reading the book, but the movie version is quite good. I mean, it's a beautiful movie. I found it to be very beautiful. So yes, that's sort of what I'm reading now, and then from there, I kind of want to go to Wuthering Heights, Jane Eyre. I've been reading a lot about the Bronte sisters and their biographies. They just sort of fascinate me. Just the idea of like these literary geniuses all being in one family. I find it incredible. Like, what are the odds of like, can you imagine like I write little old me, just some random person in the world at some random period in time. I write this masterpiece of literature that is internationally renowned as a great work of art, as part of the Western canon, the literary canon, and it endures the test of time. And then my sister writes one too. Oh, my sister. And then my other sister writes one too. And we're just all three just geniuses, you know, like it's crazy. Like, just what are the odds of that? And these people they weren't rich. They weren't like super well like educated. They didn't go to like elite schools because they were poor. And I find that just amazing. They had very hard lives too. Like I mean, you could call, like if you wrote a biography about them, you could probably call it like, I don't know, like just loss or heartache or something like that. I mean, I just feel like, because tuberculosis is what was ravishing the people of their time period, because they first they were sent to boarding school when they were, well, first their mom died when they were very little. I don't think like, I think the youngest was like 1 year old when the mom died. And so they were like young children. And then after that, they went to boarding school where there were 6 children, I think, total. Look, six. There were 6 children total in the family, and something like 4 of them died at the boarding school because they were in horrific conditions at the boarding school, apparently, and they died of tuberculosis. And so the surviving sisters and the brother were removed from the boarding school. I think the brother was there too, but they were taken out of school, and then they started dying individually of tuberculosis. And that's the fascinating thing about them, was that I would imagine, because of the hardships of the life that they were going through, they created this game of escape with their brother, the sisters and the brother. They would write these short stories and little novels and things, and they would make up characters and lands, faraway lands, and they had this sort of like literary escape where they were writing these fantasies and these adventure stories. And then they got very serious with their writing as they grew into adulthood, and they started writing novels, and each of the sisters wrote a novel. Some more than, I mean, some of the I think it was Charlotte, and yeah, Charlotte. I'm not too familiar with it. I need to go back and look, but um, one of them only wrote one novel, but I think it was Wuthering Heights. I think Emily Bronte, but I could be wrong on that. But yeah, they wrote these novels and they were publishing them with male pseudonyms because they wanted to be taken seriously by the literary critics, and they knew they wouldn't be if they were published under their female names, you know, and it's just an amazing story. And we're still learning about them today. We're still reading them today, um, all around the world. I find that quite incredible. So I want to read probably Jane Eyre. I want to be my next book to get into after I finish Call Me by Your Name. Um, I also want to read Mrs. Dalloway. I recently was watching The Hours with Meryl Streep and Nicole Kidman and um, Julianne Moore. Oh, and Toni Collette. I forgot Toni Collette was in that movie, and I had completely forgotten she was in the movie until she came on, and she was like this kind of like painfully sad, but like superficially cheerful, perfect 50s housewife. But there was like this deep sadness under that just kind of erupted forth in this moment of like panic, you know, over a health scare that she was having. And so it's just this great movie, but it reminded me like, oh shit, I've never watched, or I've never read Mrs. Dalloway before, and I wanna read it. De Profundis by Oscar Wilde is something that I really want to get into. Actually, there's a YouTuber that got me interested in it because he was talking about De Profundis and a copy that he had received. I think it was a what was the name? Kyle, what is his name? Oh, I'm sorry, YouTuber. You probably will never see my video. No one watches my videos, but this guy has like thousands of subscribers. He's on, God, what is his name? Carl. Oh my God, it's terrible. I don't remember his name right off. It's too early in the morning. I need more coffee. Cheers. Carl. Maybe Carl. Anyway, he got this folio edition of De Profundis by Oscar Wilde, and I was like, that sounds amazing. And it's this letter that Oscar Wilde wrote to his lover while he was in prison for basically his sexuality. So that, I mean, and it's this meditation on life and death and religion and all these like heavy philosophical themes. And so I'm eagerly looking forward to getting into that. Um, Pride and Prejudice. I really enjoy Jane Austen. I read Emma. I remember reading Pride and Prejudice in high school, but I want to read all of Jane Austen's works. I find her to be so she's just so uplifting. Emma was just such a joy. Like, it was just a pleasure to read. It was just fun and witty and humorous and engaging and romantic. And I was just like, I was really intrigued by Emma. And I wanna visit all of Jane Austen's works. Um, Steinbeck, I want to read more Steinbeck. Dostoevsky, Brothers Karamazov, of course, Charles Dickens, Herman Melville, Moby Dick. I definitely want to read. I've read like, I would say I've read a good 2/3 of Moby Dick. Or maybe not 2/3, maybe like a third. I've read like a third of Moby Dick, and I've never been able to power all the way through, which is sad because I'm very familiar with the story and I like it's just something that I wanna do. So these are all books I want to tackle, and I think once I finish Call Me by Your Name, I'm gonna tackle one of them. And again, I think it's gonna be Jane Eyre. But I have this ongoing. Oh, Madame Bovary. I definitely want to do Madame Bovary. Um, yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot of stuff to read. And even like classical, like the classical literature, like Homer, the epics, the epic poems, you know, the Iliad, the Odyssey, revisit those. Um, so yeah, yeah, that's my goal here. That's what I'm sort of like focusing on with my reading. But also there's a lot of like contemporary books that are coming out that are interesting, and that's the problem, is that I get sidetracked from this. Maybe sidetracked isn't the right word. Maybe it's like I'm reading all these things, but more things are coming out, and so I'm constantly adding to my list of things to be read. So this takes a long time because I'm not just doing one after the other after the other after the other. I think I would probably get really like overwhelmed by the I don't know, the heaviness of that, because sometimes I just want trashy books, you know, maybe just light light reads, you know, horror novels, just things that maybe aren't so like great literature, you know, because that probably would overwhelm me after a while. So I think it's probably good that I'm supplementing, you know, more contemporary fiction in there. But yeah, I just wanted to share with you that this idea of making it a goal to have like a lifelong reading list, and having that list for me centered around classic works of literature. And and the cool thing is that a lot of these books have movies, um that movie adaptations. Maybe some of them are really old. Like one of the books that I got is Of Human Bondage, and that book has a movie adaptation. It's funny, as I was getting that book, and the person who came out to give me the to I guess deliver my order made a comment about the book. The employee at the bookstore, and he said, "Have you seen the movie?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. I haven't seen the movie, but when did it come out?" And he said, "Oh, I think it came out a while ago." And I said, "A while ago? How long ago?" And he said, "Well, it has Betty Davis in it." And I was like, "Oh, a long time ago. Okay, so it's like it's an old yeah, that is a while ago." I was thinking like 2 years ago, 3 years, like how many? And he was like, "Oh, he was like a while ago." So it was like, "Oh, maybe a few years," but then he was like, "Oh, Betty Davis is in it." And I was like, "Oh, okay, so that really is a while ago. It's an old movie." And it is. I remember I've definitely heard about this movie. I've seen it. I haven't seen the movie, but I'm definitely aware of the movie, that it exists, but I had forgotten about it. But yeah, Of Human Bondage with Betty Davis, and that's so a lot of these books have adaptations, and so I'm the type of reader that I love to like read a novel, especially if I've never read it before, and then get into the movie, like find a movie version, and hopefully it's a version that has been like critically acclaimed or very well received, or maybe even renowned, maybe like with awards, Academy Awards or so, whatever, you know, and try to like and be able to like appreciate both, like see, okay, the book was fantastic, and then here's this here's this movie adaptation that's fantastic in its own right, and just really immerse myself in the whole experience of that particular story. So I look forward to that as well. Um, so yes, that's what I wanted to talk about. Oh, one more thing too. I recently purchased a book. I love these like moleskin notebooks. Um, but I purchased this red notebook, and